handed out the paperwork. 50 pictures of feet, bird feet. Identify the birds by their feet, the professor explained. One overstressed student blurted out, "This is ridiculous. I'm not going to do this." And he picked up his books and he headed for the door. The teacher said, "Fine, but I'm going to fail you. What's your name, young man?" And the student turned and he lifted his pant legs up and he said, "You tell me." A test. Once upon a time, in a galaxy far, far away, in a place called Uz, there was a man named Job, who also faced a test. The test is about who God is. The problems in the book of Job are the problems of the human race. Uz is a place where bad things happen to good people. Uz is a place not just where suffering comes, but where it comes without warning and without explanation. In this ancient story, called the oldest book in the Bible, God was in heaven talking to the angels, which I'm sure God did all the time back then. And the uninvited Satan appears. He is a renegade. He is a rebel. He does not live in heaven. And the Lord says to him, "Where you been?" And Satan answered like an annoyed teenager, "Hey, I've been going to and fro, here and there, so?" And the Lord says, "Did you happen to see my servant Job?" And the Satan, which is a word that means accuser, not really a name at all, but for the sake of the story it is, the Satan replies, "Yep, I saw him, blameless and upright, but I bet if you lift that protective hedge from around him, he'd curse you to your face." He dropped the gauntlet. "He worships you because you give him all his stuff," Satan said. "You think Job loves you? Well, he loves you like a kid loves Dairy Queen. He loves you the way an actor loves Botox, like a teenager loves Instagram." Back then, there was this idea of God rewarded the good people and punished the bad people. So if you were struggling or you were suffering, it meant that you had done something wrong, that there was a sin in your life or bad karma. And God was this Machiavellian super being who manipulated people like chess pieces, a deity who runs the whole show, who sat upon his throne in the clouds and said, "Oh, this guy here, he's going to get cancer today," or this guy here, he's going to lose his job, or she's going to have a miscarriage, or he's going to get a super parking place at Walmart because he's upright. Believe it or not, this archaic theology is still around today. Prosperity gospel, it's called. Blessings and curses, punishments and rewards. So I ask, is this how God operates? God makes you suffer because you deserve it? In times of tragedy, you didn't have enough faith, so your loved one wasn't healed? I don't remember Jesus ever teaching that. He actually taught the opposite. He taught about mercy and about grace. Mercy is not getting what you deserve. Grace is getting what you don't deserve. Those who say this negative stuff are rarely people who have experienced the dark night of the soul themselves. They're like armchair critics, and they only make the suffering of others worse. It's a childish, ancient theology, and it must be rejected. The portrait of a monster God is not the truth. That is the point of the book of Job. All Job's crops died. Yes, it's true. His goats ran away. That's true. His 401k crashed. That's true. His 7 sons and 2 daughters died, and the only one left was his wife, and she was not a blessing. She was honest, but she wasn't a blessing. And the boils and the sores came, and Job sat with the only thing he had left, a campfire, sitting in pain and torment, and he sighed, "The Lord gives and the Lord takes away." That's where that verse comes from. Maybe you've heard it before. It comes from despair. It is not a proverb. I'm sure you've heard it. Job has these friends, and they come and they sit with him for a while, and their silence was a gift. But then they messed things up, and they started talking, and they started rationalizing while Job sits in the ashes. One of his friends, he puts a poster on a nearby wall of a kitten precariously hanging from a tree limb. "Hang in there," it says. And then his friends start saying things like, "You must have done something wrong. There must have been some sin in your life. Because, everything happens for a reason." Then, of course, they would say the prime insensitive statement of all, "God would never give you any more than you can handle." I don't even know what that means. That God gives you leukemia and then he adds a cold sore just to see how much you can handle? Is that what that means? I remember years ago, seeing this clip on the news. It was a drunk driver, 5 killed in the other car, and he got away. He drove away. And the police explained that they were looking for this perpetrator to stand trial for murder. And underneath the video that they were showing, there was this distraught relative. I don't remember who he was, but there was a caption. He must have quoted this. A caption underneath it said, "The Lord gives and the Lord takes away." Right on national TV. Thank you very much. I mean, if the Lord took those 5 kids, then why isn't the Lord on trial? That was my question. And what about famine in Africa, or the kids in the burn unit at St. Jude's Hospital, or school shootings? What about the Holocaust? Did God do those too? C.S. Lewis wrote in his journal of grief after his wife's death, "I'm not in danger of ceasing to believe in God. The real danger is of coming to believe such dreadful things about God." God does not give us more. God does not give us what we can handle. God helps us handle what we are given. And a person who goes through suffering becomes a theologian of unique authority. They know a God who is in the trenches, who is for us and alongside us and within us. When I worked as a chaplain at University Hospital in Ontario, London, Ontario. I was in seminary at the time, and I was called up to the maternity ward to a couple who had suffered the loss of a newborn baby. I remember it because, not just because it was intensely painful, but because of what the husband said before anybody from pastoral care even came up. He said, I don't want anybody to come in here who doesn't know what it's like to lose a kid. They sent me in. And perhaps in their hospital room, he expected me to say, "Oh, the Lord giveth, and the Lord taketh away. That's the way it is. But remember, God will never give you any more than you can handle. So hang in there." But I didn't. I just stood with them. And I agreed it was awful. And that's it. No commentary. And in a way, that's what Jesus did when he came to earth. He entered our room of human suffering and stood with us. Jesus Christ, who is the central revelation of God, according to our Hebrews reading, showed us how God feels about suffering. He embraced those who were blind, people in pain, in fear, people who were broken up and beaten up and tormented. And not once did Jesus say, "You deserve it." Once there was a sad time at a funeral where St. John in chapter 11 simply says, Jesus wept. Jesus, who reveals the character of God, says, God is not doing this to you. God is not on the side of the disease. God is on the side of healing. God is not on the side of death. God is on the side of life. Always. Once I asked a young boy, what is the opposite of simple? I won't tell you who this boy is, but his name rhymes with ham. He said, the opposite of simple is unsimple. There you go. And I took him in my arms and I blessed him. Because this world is unsimple. Life is complicated. We don't always understand. Not on this side of heaven's door. Life is difficult, but God is with you, and heaven is sure. At the end of the story, Job never finds out about the conversation in heaven. But he finds out something even better. He finds out who God really is, and he passes the test. Amen.